Got a lot of notes on this one, so.
Got the mics, all right.
All right.
Well, hi, welcome to it.
Hello, sir.
Welcome back to the Woo. We're the Woo Boys.
On episode 3 now. Shout out to Garrett for this one. We actually really love this idea. This is probably the most woo topic that we'll cover so far. It's super out there. It's super occult. It's super old, and throughout history has been super controversial. So a lot of stuff that we like to talk about on this one, and that idea is Abraxas, or
Abraxas.
If you read the oldest shit from Basilides, Abraxas. Not really clear to me in my research when this kind of shifted from Abraxas to Abraxas, but we do know the oldest spelling of Abraxas is Abraxas. I'll probably just keep calling it Abraxas throughout this, just because that's the more common thing and easier to find thing. But basically, from the oldest stuff that we have, I don't think we have anything directly from Basilides. We just have accounts of Basilides' teachings, if I recall correctly. Is that what you saw too? Mm-hmm. Basically, what they were teaching is that Abraxas, in their words, was the idea that good and evil, light and dark, opposites are part of the same thing and necessary for one another. Is that how you would put it?
Mm-hmm. And that it's like polarized opposites are unified as one like being. Basically considered it a being.
Yeah. And the stuff I read on that, kind of like it's a being. Like, it wasn't clear to me whether it was like actually conscious or like a present active force or just one of the principles that defines the universe. But it's perfect for gnosis. The idea of gnosis or Gnosticism, it's so clear to me that this is like the ABCs of Gnosticism. Like, this is letter A. Mm-hmm. First you learn about Abraxas, letter A, and then you go into the crazier shit after that. But it's so perfect because it's the first kind of mind-blowing fact where it's like, all right, you're taught like your whole life, I feel like, through forms of media and stuff like that, kind of conditioned that it's always good versus evil and good has to win and blah 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 blah. And then with this form of gnosis, you kind of take a step back and you're like, so they both have to exist. Mm-hmm. And they're actually like, you're able to accept, and I guess the challenge is to accept that they both exist. Mm-hmm. And then I think there's deeper levels. Like, I think this is just like the first step of gnosis, and I think it kind of can break some brains that like evil kind of has to exist. And I think the next level, though, to show like the human power of it, or kind of what might be evidence that we are a spark from the monad, which is the highest, the pleroma, which would be considered even above Abraxas, and there's some thoughts on that. We can talk about Jung's thoughts on that too. He wrote a lot about this in Seven Sermons of the Dead, and that's the most recent serious piece we have about Abraxas. Jung was a crazy guy. We should probably do a whole freaking talk on just him himself, dude. He had all kinds of supernatural stuff going on with him, and it was corroborated by witnesses.
Jung said Abraxas broke his brain.
I mean,
he
yeah,
dude. Brain break. He literally said like the psychological implications of there possibly existing an Abraxas being. He's like, I had to rethink everything when I like integrated that one.
Yeah, and if you go all the way back to like the early, like, so like Basilides was like in the 2nd century CE, I think, and then after that you get like other accounts from other guys. One of the most popular ones is Irenaeus, who was a bishop of the Christian Orthodox Church at the time.
So Basilides was a Gnostic.
He was a
Gnostic,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So there's the Gnosticism, and then there's like the Orthodox.
Yeah,
like two factions.
Yeah, and I see that's a good thing to bring up, because you can find mentions of Abraxas in like old Persian documents as well, and also in Egyptian stuff, and even some like very old like Jewish Kabbalah stuff. So it's like this idea was around in multiple cultures in the Middle East, and I guess over into Southern Europe, like in very ancient times. And then I guess the church did a very good job destroying a lot of these documents and controlling narratives, because it really got well, at least a lot of that stuff got destroyed, and we just have accounts of accounts, really. Mm-hmm. And then the most recent work, Jung bringing it back alive in like 1917 or like early 1900s, whenever he did his piece on it.
Yeah. So Abraxas was kind of first mentioned by Basilides, said in like the 2nd century. He was an Egyptian Gnostic. It was interesting seeing how it has been mentioned, like kind of by name or by similar names, like you said, across Persian, in Persian texts, ancient Greco-Roman, just general astrology, like there's always this idea of Abraxas being, whether it's a concept or an actual being. And if we want to do kind of a quick Gnostic lesson, so Gnosticism, there's the idea that there was the monad, which is like the highest ultimate point of reality. It's like the totality, singularity, God source from which everything ever emanated.
Also called Sophia, right, in some texts?
Sophia is a separate thing. So like the monad created Sophia and other gods that are sort of like archetypal like concepts, more or less. Sophia like represents wisdom.
Okay.
And they live in this realm called the pleroma, which is like heaven, paradise, like just the pure conscious realm of existence. Sophia wanted to create the way that the monad creates, so she gave birth to a son.
The Demerge.
And she wasn't supposed to do that because she did it by herself. The whole point of like creation is it takes two, but she wanted to create the way that the monad creates, but she wasn't the monad, so the son was a bastard basically who was like a monster. And so she threw him away, she like banished him to the depths to hide what she'd done. And then him in the depths, who was alone by himself, he thought he was the only thing that existed, and he thought he was God, and he created Earth and where we are. And so he's what's called the demiurge, and a lot of the Gnostics say that that's who Yahweh is, the God of the Old Testament, and that he's kind of a monster, and that's why
he's
he
kind of not a nice
is
dude. He's a very
genocidal
jealous
and does
dude.
plagues and is like violent and kind of manipulative and like a tyrant. So and that's like what it is, because it's like this.
And one of the craziest principles about him, we should probably do an episode probably about him, but one of the craziest principles about him is like he's
Gnostic
blind.
episode.
He's not aware of the higher levels. He thinks he is the monad in his mind.
Yeah.
He also created archons, which govern which govern this realm.
Yeah, they
govern
call
these lower realms.
His blindness ignorance. So like the pleroma is the realm of like perfect conscious understanding where the monad and all the gods live. He's separate from that, so he's ignorant, so he's blind. So yeah, he creates just bad things, and that's why this world, it's according to Gnosticism, that's why this world feels just heavy and not right, and it's like bad and violent and all the stuff. And yeah, archons are the guardians of the gates to get back to the pleroma.
Yeah, and I think I met one time when I was on DMT. That was fucking insane.
Hell yeah. So that's Gnosticism in a nutshell.
Yeah, in a nutshell. We'll go more into that right now. We'll try to stay on topic with Abraxas for the time being, but I guess that's a good background to kind of get a little more color on the canvas of what this thing was or what this guy was. But to go back to Irenaeus, there were a lot of people that were shooting kind of the Abraxas idea down or trying to warp it in the early centuries after like early centuries AD. So Irenaeus is one of the more popular accounts, and he tries to form Abraxas as the ultimate god, basically trying to get the idea that these Gnostics they were indeed worshiping Abraxas. Like, and it wasn't clear if it was actually worship of Abraxas or just one of the signs of gnosis that you knew about Abraxas. But he was trying to frame it in a light that was like, oh no, they were worshiping him as the ultimate god. Like, this is just what they called God. Like, something like that. Because when you think from the church's standpoint, especially the early church and still now, is it's been all about power. The church loses all of its power and influence if like people can follow the Gnostic path and find enlightenment on their own, and something like Abraxas goes against. The church is always for good, destroy bad, and whatever they say is bad.
Yeah.
So
God is love.
It's
like no, God's both.
Right.
God's everything.
Well, Abraxas is both. Jung actually goes into there's God and the devil, and then there's Abraxas above it. And what Abraxas is it's the joining force that allows both of these things to exist. So we're not quite ready for that one, but yeah. So obviously, it'd be very bad for the church to lose its hold over the people, and the church is supposed to be where the people go for enlightenment, and they're always looking to an authority figure. They're always looking towards authority figures, which is why I think a lot of these power structures and hierarchies hate Gnosticism and things like that, is because the big thing about Gnosticism, it's like you are your own salvation. Like, you can lead yourself to the light. And that's part of why you're here. And obviously the church would not like something like that, because then you don't look up to pastors anymore. You don't look up into your priests anymore, and you're not looking at them as an authority figure for guidance. Basically, yeah, just like I don't know, just a power structure that you'd be looking for guidance, and they lose their control. They lose their control and all their influence that they could have on society and people. So that's one of the reasons why I think Abraxas is considered so dangerous, and has been considered dangerous and been fought so hard by institutions, and why the church has tried to burn all the Gnostic texts and all the texts about Abraxas and stuff like that. So was Irenaeus successful? I guess for a little bit, because there were a couple other guys. I think it was Herodotus and some other guys who also kind of tried to frame the same thing, that Abraxas was actually being worshipped as a supreme ruler, not as like, just the concept that we were talking about, where like, it's God and devil, and it's the force that allows them both to exist and stuff like that. So that was pretty interesting in my research. Did you come upon the Greek history at all, or when they were trying to phase out Abraxas?
Yeah, it was like, what was interesting to me, I don't know about that. Were you phasing out Abraxas?
Well, trying to just destroy the Gnostic texts and get rid of his the idea of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's dangerous, obviously, to the Orthodox Christianity to insinuate that the devil is just like the other half of God, or like God's shadow. And Jung was all big about that, about the process of individuation, and that individuation occurs when you integrate your shadow, or like the repressed parts of yourself that maybe you're not even aware of, but they're in your unconscious and subconscious. So the devil is basically God's effort at individuation, and he kind of tied it into the fact that the monad is the perfect unified totality of existence, I guess, consciousness, but that's an extremely boring thing to be. Like, if you're the monad, you are just and like you're just existing and being, and nothing really happens. So the split of the monad becoming aware, this is another thing I saw. Some people said that Abraxas lives in the pleroma and is higher than the demiurge, but was not higher than the monad, but that Abraxas is what formed when the monad seeked to individuate itself. It was the first separation of itself. Basically becoming aware of itself.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole Sophia idea. The whole Sophia idea is like Sophia wanted to be aware of herself. Yeah. So she created, I guess maybe in the monad started like, that she created the demerge to prove that she existed to herself. But the way she did it obviously was not the way she was supposed to do it, and then she created a pretty scary thing.
Yeah. But for the monad to exist, it's just existing, but it's not like necessarily aware that it's existing. So it became, for some reason, it became aware that it existed, and then the next impulse is to individuate. So its shadow basically formed at that point, and that is when Abraxas formed. And so Abraxas being, if we do consider it a being that lives in the pleroma, which Jung kind of did, I guess Basilides and the Greeks necessarily didn't. They viewed it more as a concept, but still, so God and Satan are basically two poles of this larger mind, or being, if you want to call it that. And that was necessary for individuation of consciousness in general, which we are then all, if you want to take it to an individual level, we're all fractals of that.
Yeah.
And everybody has their own individual
right, and that's so that's a
individuation journey.
That's a great point, because and the way I see it is like, it's like God and devil are two principles that Abraxas allows the thing to, like, it's important it's necessary for this thing to exist.
For anything to exist.
Yeah, for anything to exist in this form or fashion.
There has to be polar opposites, and then the reverberation or the relationship between the two is what atoms, electromagnetic forces.
Yeah, you see the idea on micro and macroscopic scales. In this reality, it's just reverberated in different ways, or reflected in different ways. But on that note, the symbol that you normally see from Abraxas, and I don't know if they found these from ancient Egypt, but I know they found some from ancient Greek times. And you've got, there's some interesting takes that I was reading on the symbol about what people think it is, and it's not. I didn't find anything that was like concrete from actually like very, very old guys.
What's the symbol?
So the symbol,
you'd think it'd be like yin and yang, or like a plus minus.
Right.
What's the symbol?
But the symbol is a rooster headed being with the torso of a man, a whip and a shield, and then two snakes for legs. And that's the being of Abraxas. And there's different takes. So I'm going to start at the head, and then stop me wherever you want me to.
No,
but so let's start with the head, with the rooster. And so there's two kind of thoughts. The first thought I ran upon was that this is The symbol, like, this is symbolic of the awakening of the individual, their first step in gnosis, receiving like the knowledge of these governing principles of the universe that are like true knowledge, not just like this shit that, like, I don't know, you're told by like authority figures, but like the actual one of the actual first governing principles that you need to understand in order to go further and understand what all this shit is doing and how it works. So the awakening, because the rooster crows and wakes everybody up and stuff like that. But the other thing I was reading about this, and it could be both, because some of these guys were so symbolic. And you know, if you're thinking like, if this knowledge really was from like interdimensional beings or something like that, they're going to try to speak through symbols, because how else are they going to communicate to humans?
The King's English.
The King's English, or High Deutsch. So the rooster also cause when light and dark are both present at daybreak. Mm-hmm. So when they're not necessarily mixing together, but when they're both present at daybreak, that's also the time when the rooster crows, and that's also representative of the idea of Abraxas. So I think it could be both of those things. Both those are pretty good. Let's do the whips and the shield next. So the whip is offense, the shield is defense. It is both destruction and protection or conservation of states of matter and being. So you can create, you can also destroy. We see this in man. This is embodied in a lot of things throughout life.
They're inseparable.
Inseparable,
Creation
inseparable, and perpetual. Yeah. So that's and those are on the torso of a man, because man embodies Abraxas. So that is what the torso of the man, and it makes sense to me that would be what the torso of man looks, because like I don't take all this stuff like face value, because like a lot of this stuff is like kind of people throwing their own ideas out there, but like makes sense. And then the legs, I think, were wisdom and knowledge, the two things that keep you grounded, like snakes, all the way on the ground, at this level of existence. Because the other thing about Abraxas is the name of it isn't so important as like the numerology of it, because it adds to 365, and the reason for that is believed to be that Abraxas governed the 365 heaven, was a governing principle, in my opinion, of the 365 heavens. I don't have too much info on the 365 heavens. That was a hard one to dig more into, but maybe I can at some point. But anyway, 365 heavens, 365 days of the year, stuff like that. More symbolism in there. About, you know, how this realm works and how all this stuff ties together.
Yep. The 365 stuff, what I was able to kind of discover is like when the world was created, there was the first heaven was created, and the God that made that could rule that one, and then he populated it with like beings and angels and stuff, and then and then they could create one, and each subsequent heaven was controlled by one that's higher, but that Abraxas is able to control all 365 of them. And yeah, the numerology thing, like the idea that back in ancient Greek and Hebrew, you can add the letters up because they had numeric value, and Abraxas adds up to 365. Basically, just in like a poetic way, means that he governs the totality of existence. Like all 365 heavens just means like everything that there is in, I guess, the multiverse. Everything exists. Nothing could possibly exist without a polarity, like at its core. Like the monad becoming individuate, like it existed, but then once there was the awareness that it existed, it like split itself. So there's something that exists, and then also there's like something else that's aware of its existence, and we each reflect that. Plants.
Right, and that's kind of a crazy thing. Because like, if you only have like a positive charge, you could never know that you were a positive charge, because you only know yourself. And maybe you can be like aware like of yourself, but you could never test it against anything. But once you create that negative, once you have that negative charge, then you can go, okay, that's negative. I'm not the same. Therefore, maybe I must be positive, right? Like that's that must be the logical conclusion here. So pretty crazy how like the whole idea ties into things, and like the story about why it was created, or like what the motivation was for whatever the creator.
And like matter, the torso with the whip and the shield is sort of representative of like this world, the 3D Earth world that we're in with our bodies. As much as we don't like it sometimes, it is the perfect arena to enact these like principles. Is like, because if you lived in the pleroma, you wouldn't really meet much resistance. You'd sort of be blissful and happy all the time. And if you live in hell, then you're basically powerless, and you're just stomped on and rotting constantly. So the fact that we humans represent this middle ground of between spiritual and like mineral or terrestrial, and being able to act within the world. Like you have your own inner drive and inner force that you enact out into the world, but then you're met with resistance, whether it's physical or interpersonal, or, you know, if you're an athlete. And that's where this is the best place for spiritual growth to occur, is because of those circumstances, because of the polarity that allows this world to manifest. Yeah.
So, and I was looking just more of my notes, and there were other things about Abraxas where like it was like a password in like Egyptian rituals and things like that, and like Greco-Egyptian rituals where it wasn't even like really like an idea or anything, but it was more like language or an operative language of how to know. It's like, oh, you know about this, ergo we can talk about these things because you have this knowledge or this gnosis. And I don't know, the whole idea of gnosis too and Gnosticism, like I was talking to you a little bit about it yesterday. It was almost like, what I've been really wondering lately is like, what's the point of all of it? So like if you actually do achieve gnosis and you actually do fully understand the principles of Gnosticism, and that, you know, you were able to remember that you came from the monad, like truly realize that memory, like do you still have to stay here? Like, do you just get to leave? Is that Christ consciousness? Are you then, you know, just doing whatever you want, manipulating reality, or like what's the end game to that enlightenment? And you had a pretty interesting answer.
Yeah, that however high you go, you'll be met with getting clapped back down.
It wasn't that. It was your answer was it wasn't Taoist. Maybe it was the Buddhist response of before enlightenment.
Oh yeah.
Chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. It's like you could achieve perfect gnosis in this lifetime. Jesus is the example given as like a figure who did achieve complete gnosis and enlightenment and realized he was unified with the monad, and because of that, you know, gained extraordinary powers, but still had to live in this world and still had to like suffer and die. He died ultimately and had to eat and had to shit. So it's like, yeah, you could achieve complete gnosis and enlightenment, but like you still have to wake up and eat, and you know, we have to like make money to pay rent and pay for food to eat.
Yeah.
So like
the grind continues. What, even after enlightenment?
Yeah, and that's part of the the idea of meditation and balance. Like balance is key, because we do live, every individual and the world itself lives between two poles, and being being like super spiritual, you know, which relates to the crown chakra, and being grounded, which is the root chakra. And you can become imbalanced in one or the other. Like if you become way too spiritual and all you want to do is meditate and bliss out and just be, you could do that, but you know, you do also have to think about how you're going to eat and what you're going to wake up and do every single day. And then if you're too grounded, that can be like depression, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Or you're just rigid and uptight.
Dude, I've been there before, and that's fucking terrible.
And so they talk about, a lot of spiritual teachings talk about being heart-centered, and it sounds like kind of hippy-dippy, but you have 7 chakras, and the heart chakra is the 4th one. It's right in the middle. So you have 3 lower ones and 3 higher ones. And that if you are heart-centered, and like, you know, they say lead from your heart, speak from your heart, do things with love. And it's sort of metaphorical and stuff, but it is truly like the place to try to reside, to make sure that you're polarized in a proper way.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing too. Like we talked about in the ancient Egyptian episode, like
not polarized.
The way they believed, you know, things is like they were weighing your heart against a feather in the afterlife, and if you had done more good than bad, then your heart would weigh less than the feather. Mm-hmm. If you'd done more bad and good, your heart weighed more than the feather, and you were actually deleted from the simulation. Like you were actually ripped out of that reality, and your soul was destroyed.
I don't like that.
Which is kind of crazy. Well, just be a good person.
So live from your heart, man. Have a heart, man.
Yeah. And dude, there was also some interesting stuff. You had some takes on like the degrees of polarity.
Yeah.
That we were talking about, and I think my most interesting thing, or my like almost intuitive, I don't know why this thought came into my mind after I was like, all right, I realized that, you know, Abraxas is like I said, it's the ABCs, it's letter A of Gnosticism. We're not even to the fucking calculus of it yet, but not even close. Yeah,
there's math.
Yeah, but we're not even. It's quantum math. It gets even better.
Oh, cool.
So, which could also be Abraxas. A quantum is something existing in a state of positive and negative at the same time.
Dude.
It's Abraxas.
Wait.
So
Yeah, no, I was reading about, the idea that electrons and particles are constantly flashing in and out of existence, and that you're made up of trillions and trillions of those. So you, at a quantum scale, are constantly blinking in and out of existence. So like your very physical state of matter, even that, when you really get down to the smallest measurable units, is flashing in and out constantly to sort of make this, what's the term that they use? The interference pattern?
Okay.
Yeah, that's basically you. That
is your physical being?
That keeps you steady across time.
Okay.
But it's constantly, you're so fast, it's like trillions of times per second. You're blinking in and out of existence. And even at that scale, that's Abraxas, right?
Yep.
In and out, in and out, in and out. Two polarities.
Both places at the same time. Yeah.
And they measure it, and it creates that.
Necessary.
It looks like a wave, like when you measure particles doing that.
Yeah.
So it's inescapable. The idea of polarity is just built into.
Yeah, it's built into this reality, built into the world, built into the way this shit works. So what I was saying though is like I feel like step 2 though, like letter B, or like maybe the numbers, maybe number 1, whatever you learn after the letter A is something like. And I think it's the scariest thought when you start thinking about Abraxas is like, it would really prove that we are part of the monad if we were really part of the original creation, the more powerful creation, is that like we also have the power to control how much good and how much bad there is, which is terrifying because it's like you actually have that much agency in this world and you can influence it that much, and I really think humans can. Case in point, look at the news for 10 minutes, but you do a lot of bad shit, but. I think that like that's a terrifying thought, and that's another reason that like the Gnostics would want to be destroyed by some of these like orders and hierarchies and power structures, just because like that knowledge amongst like being common amongst people could really stir up their authority, or their assumed authority in this reality.
For sure.
Yeah, but that was like my step 2 thing. And then I was also talking to you about like why, like back to like, so if you do achieve enlightenment, like what is the point of staying here? Like what's keeping you here? And you were talking about the archons. You think the archons really want to keep us here, and I'm sure they do. But like I'm so troubled, and I go back and forth. I'm like, all right, if we really are part of the monad, we should be more powerful than the archons. Jesus in his like ancient texts, like in the Gospel of Thomas stuff, I think talks about defeating archons and getting past archons, like as if they're like gates to enlightenment.
It's like, well, you are. I guess if you achieve true gnosis and like unity with the monad, the part of the monad that resides in you, your spark, your divine spark, as it's called sometimes, you are truly more powerful than the archons, but they will do everything in their power, and they are powerful. They're good at their job, like you said.
They are good at their job.
They're really good at their job at making you believe that you're not. And Jesus represented a figure who was able to like overcome the archons. I also told you that story about that monk that I heard about one time. I think it's real. It could not be real. I'm pretty sure it's real. I saw a video and everything, but who knows? These Tibetan monks, this one monk like was on a super like disciplined regimen of meditation that he'd been doing for like a long time, and he was like in this thing, and then he just told the monk, he like announced to all the rest of the monks in this monastery one day, like, okay, today's the day that I'm going to leave. And he got into just he like laid down on the floor, got into like a meditative state. Just I don't know how long it lasted, probably a while. Super meditative state, and then he kind of just died. Sort of just left, and I think
just chose to leave.
Yeah, and I guess like you talk about you have an inner experience, and like I told you, I was on mushrooms one time, and I kind of laid down on the floor, and I just did the practice of like letting go, like sort of a meditation. Yeah. And just things letting go, and these layers kind of letting go, and I could feel them like, go away, and I got like just, you get lighter, and I just kind of felt myself like evaporating, and it was like right when it got to the point where I guess I felt like I was just going to evaporate completely. I was just going to I just like, it was like a lightning bolt. It was just like, boom, you're back in your body. It was like that feeling when you like jolt awake, like when you're falling asleep, and it was like one of those, right? And it's like, there are these gateways, these energetic gateways that you can do to like ascend spiritually, but that could be like an archon or like the final archon is like, no, you are chemically, electromagnetically trapped here for however long, I guess it's planned that you're going to be here, and it's not necessarily for you to know. But yeah, no, even if you become enlightened, ultimately it's like you are here. You have to put up with the fact that you're here and do it honorably. I guess unless you become a monk and you just spend all your time meditating. And I think he probably got in such deep like inner psychological states via his meditation that he was coming up against archons. And they talk about there's like riddles or like passwords that you have to answer and give to get past them.
Yeah.
And so he might have just made a deal with each archon and then met the final one and was just like, and now I can go.
Yeah, I've heard like some of them are like, some of the words are like, I am free, and then light and stillness is one of them. For one of them, there's like 7 different guys that you got to go through. The one that I encountered just told me I'm not ready yet.
Yeah.
And I just took him at his word because he was just this massive, powerful form of energy.
And he just slammed the door, and you went right back, right? Like
I just said okay, and then the door shut. And then I went right back to my body, and it was like, whoa.
And there
what
is,
the
and
fuck?
And it's like fear is an archon. Like anything that you come up against and you feel fear, that has been compared, like that's considered an archon, and you have to get past that one. Anger, lust, jealousy, things like that. I feel like those emotional triggers are signs that like you're coming up against an archon. And if you like get past fear, you open up to levels of like freedom and creativity.
Getting past fear, getting people out of that fear state is so hard these days too, with all the fucking things going on. But if you can overcome being fear-based and just like that whole giant hurdle, like I feel like that really is like the first archon, is to just stop like getting past that operating frequency.
Yeah, and that's your root. That's hard.
Yeah, dude, it's so hard. It's the base. It's the base. Yeah.
That's like life or death. And you could, I guess, theoretically do what that monk did. You can spend all your time getting really good at meditating and learning, I guess, how to navigate whatever inner journey he was having, probably coming up against archons. And you could just bliss out of this realm and go live in the pleroma if you so wanted to do that. He was probably predisposed a certain way. Yep. Jesus could have done that, and even Jesus was like, kind of honored this. I think that dishonors this realm. I think that you do need to healthily interact with this realm, and that's what Jesus represented. Was he even after leaving the realm, he came back, right? He's like, no, like, this is where it's at. You need to honor your incarnation.
If he even left in the first place, there's a whole bunch of crazy stories about that too.
Well, that's like, so according to like when I went to Catholic school, so Jesus was crucified and he died and he was dead for 3 days, and it's in those 3 days he went down into hell and rounded up all the good souls who, because no one could get into heaven until Jesus died on the cross, is what they teach. So he rounded up all the good souls out of hell and brought them all up to heaven, and then from that point on, good people could go to heaven after they died. So even that is like a alchemical Dante journey of going from the root to the ascension. And then he's like, and now I have to go back. And he spent, I think they told us like 40, like he comes back and then he spends like another 40 days here, like with the apostles and telling them what they need to do.
That's the story, that story, yeah.
But yeah, and Ram Dass, it's a Ram Dass idea. It's like, don't become so enlightened and blissed out on spirituality that you forget to honor your incarnation. Like you do belong to a family in a city and you have a body. And so it's like, that's a role.
Yeah, and dude, that's a whole other thing. So like I was telling you, I went through a phase where I watched a whole lot of indie videos, and it's so common in an indie experience. And there's guys who have done deeper studies than what I was doing on this, and they maybe we can pull up some of their takes someday. But one of the most commonly reported things that I saw was that like people come back and report that they're here for a purpose. Like they're like, yeah, I talked to an angel, or yeah, I talked to my like mother, I talked to somebody, and there's a dark side of this as well that I will get to. But they were basically like, yeah, basically I talked to somebody and they told me I had to fulfill this purpose, and there's a contract, and some people go into, and it's also kind of commonly reported that you can change this contract, and you can change the contract at any point in time. But there seems to be like a goal, and like you're led to believe, it seems, by these whatever beings these are that count, whether it actually is these spirits or if it's other things. You're kind of led to believe that you chose to be here, and that's why you're here. And there seems to be like some people get told stuff like that, like if you make it past this world, you ascend to a level to where you're considered kind of like a lesser god or something like that, because like this realm is just so challenging.
This is where the action is.
Yeah, this is where the action is. It's a spiritual war zone. And the darker side of this is there's some people who have come back and some people who have done, like I think even Robert Monroe of the famous remote viewer funded by the CIA, started the Monroe Institute in Virginia. He has some meditations on that are really dark, where he goes and he experiences stuff like this because he could get to crazy theta wave states of meditation. And he talks about, like, he thinks it's archons tricking people when they have these NDEs and convincing them to come back.
Yeah, they want to keep us here.
Yeah, they do want to keep you, and like that it's not really your mom, it's not really your angel. It's actually an archon tricking you. Yeah, and one of the tricks that I read to counter that is when you go towards, you don't go towards light. The light's going to pull you. You don't go towards the light. You turn around and you say, "I want to go home."
The light is an
and
archon.
then you're supposed to go home to whatever dimension, whatever reality you were at before you went to this three-dimensional. Yeah. Heavy world.
So when you die, don't go to the light. That's a trick by the Archon. You have to go to the darkness.
Because they want you to reincarnate. And it goes deeper. Monroe went deeper, dude. He went into the Loosh.
They harvest our Loosh.
Yeah, they harvest our Loosh. What Loosh is the idea, Monroe's idea, that there's this negative energy that we produce, and off of our negative emotions, sadness, hate, anger, stuff like that.
Lower chakra,
yeah, sad stuff. The archons feed off that, basically, like we're batteries or something, like you were describing yesterday. Like, yeah, so it's like they feed off of that in some form or fashion in a spiritual way, and they try to convince, or they try to keep us here reincarnating so that we continually can be farmed for our Loosh, because that's their energy source. They don't want us to leave.
Mm-hmm. And you are kind of a battery. If you have chakras, and you have like a positive, or I don't know, whichever one's positive or negative, but like a spiritual one and then a more earthly bounded one, your heart being in the middle. It's like if you can balance your energy, your internal energy system, that creates like a cell, like a voltaic cell, like a battery, right? Batteries have a positive and negative in, and that's where electricity is produced. And they talk about your heart being the producer of your electromagnetic field. Like
right.
your brain is obviously is your brain, it's made of neurons. But don't they say that like your heart is this some pseudoscience, like your heart has more neurons than your brain does? Or
I don't know if I don't think that's true.
I don't
think that's true, but I know like that's like your heart is where like your torus of energy, the energy field that goes around you, that's like the center of it.
Your heart produces a stronger electromagnetic field than your brain does, which is interesting. Yeah, so your heart being the place to try to keep your balance, I guess. That's where your center is your heart. And then you have 3 chakras above that are aligned to spiritual connotations: your throat, your third eye, your crown. Those are the like higher frequency ones. And then beneath that, your solar, your sacral, and your root. And those are more of like your terrestrial, like egoic chakras. Mm-hmm. And if you're too flipped one way or the other, then you're out of balance. Like if you're in your lower chakras, you're gonna, maybe be like a little bit selfish or angry or greedy, and not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just like you are living sort of in an imbalance. But furthermore, you can be imbalanced in your higher ones, and I think hippies kind of get that way.
Yeah, like
really hippie people, you get all like blissed out and you get all into spirituality and your third eye and ascension. But even that is an imbalance. It's like you need to have equal parts both, and you need to be centered in your heart space. And if you achieve that, which Buddhist meditation practices kind of teach you how. I think Jesus had teachings about love your heart, live from your heart, the bleeding heart of Jesus. When you are living in that sense, and you're not imbalanced and you're heart-centered, your body becomes a battery. Your electromagnetic field becomes stronger, interacts more potently with the electromagnetic field of the earth, of all other living things that have their electromagnetic field, and you do sort of become more influential as a being.
Okay.
That's an idea. That's a fun idea.
No, that's a fun idea.
And that's
a
what,
really cool idea.
The Force, like in Star Wars, I brought up Star Wars in every one of these that we've done, the light and the dark. But if you are
because there's so many principles that apply.
In tune with the Force, then you sort of have a stronger effect on the world than people who aren't. Stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Abraxas, polarized.
Polarized.
Batteries.
But both are necessary, and they're actually just one thing.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty much covers, I feel like, a lot of these like Abraxas adjacent things. I feel like we should tackle Jung next, just because he's so prevalent in so many of the things that we're going to talk about, and he is fascinating to me because he really did seem to have these supernatural type of experiences where when people witnessed them. And I remember there's one famous story, and I wish I could remember this guy's name, but one of his most famous critics, who was also a very well-respected psychologist or something, was debating one of the private debate with him in a library, and over Jung's claims that he could talk to the spirit world, or the spirit world was real or something. He was a devout atheist. And Jung made this claim, and he was like, behind that bookshelf there will be a loud bang in 3 seconds or something like that. And he was like, and the other guy was like, bullshit. And then in 3 seconds you hear, and he's like, how did you do that? You set that up. He was like, you can't do it again. And then Jung goes, wait, it'll be there. And it happens again. And he's like, how are you doing that? And he tries to go over there and he tries to see if there's anything there, and there's not clearly anything there. The guy still said he couldn't explain it, but he did report that it was true. He did hear the bangs twice, which is pretty crazy. Yeah. But Jung wrote 7 sermons to the dead. And it's something it's only it's less than 20 pages long. It's something I feel like everyone should read. And there are some edited versions which are bullshit. You should try really hard to find the original version online. It's not that hard to find in PDF form. But he wrote this when he said spirits came to him and would not leave him alone. And other members of his family who were living in his house at the time did say that they were witnesses to strange events, things moving around in the house, noises in the house, the doorbell ringing and no one being there, stuff like that. And in general, just a creepy, weird kind of vibe. And Jung claimed that these spirits were Christian spirits from the Holy Land, and they needed answers from him. And this is where Jung says, I think the most controversial part about this is where Jung says that he started to inform them about Abraxas, and tell them that good and evil were both necessary, and they wanted to hear, no, just good always wins, and it pained the spirits and stuff like that. But he's the Most High God. The God he placed Abraxas above the God and devil, like I was saying, this good and evil forces. And he didn't really, and he actually talks about the pleroma in this as well. And it wasn't clear. I don't remember actually if Abraxas was part of the pleroma or just below the pleroma. But he goes on, and his idea of the pleroma is it is nothingness and completeness. It is everything all at once. It is all of the things and none of the things at the same time, which is almost kind of an
paradox.
An Abraxas kind of idea, but it's this is the highest level, and I think Abraxas was maybe one below it, but maybe it was part of the pleroma and his idea of it. But God and devil were below Abraxas because God and devil both needed Abraxas to exist.
Yeah, Abraxas encompasses them both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and basically what he started to get at, besides that, was that this is something that's prevalent in all of the life. And he said these were thoughts that just came to him from his spirit world, from the divine, whatever the fucking shit he was that was conjuring schizophrenia. I don't know. But he was a super brilliant guy. So I don't think it was schizophrenia, because there's a lot of stuff that made me think it was not schizophrenia, and just how profound he was. Yeah.
I mean, it's the idea that schizophrenia is just having a really strong connection to the spirit world and spirits, and talk about hearing voices. It's spirits are talking to you. I don't know.
Might be, yeah.
It's also people who are super creative. How often are there tortured mad geniuses? Who have mental illness or schizophrenia?
Oh yeah, and that's something.
But it's they're just becoming. You're receiving things, and you're I have to make it, or
yeah. And he was there's a thin line between genius and madness, and all these things, and all of these are evidence of Abraxas being present and part of this world and stuff like that. And after he gives his 7 sermons to the dead, that's when the spirits finally leave him alone, and they don't really sound like they were satisfied.
Yeah.
But they got the answers that they needed, not the answers that they wanted. And it was just another one of those things where it's all right, a lot of this stuff is a lot of the Gnostic principles and Gnosis itself is if you really want it, you can get it, but it might not be what you actually wanted.
Yeah. Yep. Well, being able to hear the spirits like that, they say that's can be if your crown chakra is just wide open, the one on the top of your head. If you have just a super open crown chakra, you're receiving. That's how you receive from the universe, right?
Yeah.
So I guess if your crown chakra is super open, maybe Carl Jung had a super open crown, and so was able to just receive downloads and receive all this stuff, but was grounded enough to then be able to write, use it to make something that exists in this world and lasts for generations. And even artists talk about that, like you become possessed by the idea. Like you said, like they wouldn't leave him alone until he finished it. Like if you have an idea for like a song or a book or a painting or whatever it is, and like the idea of being tortured by it until you complete it, and then it'll leave you alone.
Yeah.
Artists, our mystics, our magic, our spiritual, or it's all the same thing.
Yeah, and here I want to touch on some of this stuff about Jung's pleroma. So that was where all qualities cancel one another. Light is neutralized by darkness, good by evil, life by death, fullness by emptiness, one by many. Because everything is present, nothing is distinct. It's not a personal creator God. It's more like limitless potential before any particular reality has emerged. Just that alone is enough to fucking sit on for a while. And then Jung says that when he's trying to comprehend or merge it into, or that trying to comprehend or merge it
Demerge it.
threatens the individual with dissolution.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just like you can drive yourself into madness trying to realize these concepts. Because it's like you are in a way the realization of these concepts.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just thinking about yourself a lot and all the principles that govern you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you are the universe. Like everything that exists in the universe exists within you.
Yeah.
And you can become imbalanced in that way. Like if you're too inner focused on your own notions and your own world and energies. I mean, and then again, if you're too focused on everything out there and you neglect yourself, that's an imbalance.
Yeah.
So there's polarized forces in the inner, the outer, and having a balance between those, the higher, the lower, and having a balance between those. Sex even, between men and women.
Right, too. Yeah, you see the two gender thing
Gender.
all over in Gnosticism and stuff like that.
It's atoms have positive, negative, trees have roots and branches. Every single thing that exists that could possibly exist, it has two poles that you have to navigate the balance between. Conservative, liberal.
Yeah, and there's one more thing that, well, and I know it's funny you mentioned the political spectrum because you can, and that's the more embodied. It's like you can have a whole spectrum of things in between two things, but you can really boil it all down to two things at the end, and they cancel each other out, and one is necessary for the other to exist because without it, you don't really know what that other thing is. Mm-hmm. There's one more thing I wanted to say. Jung in Seven Zeds in the translation, the oldest translation, he calls Abraxas terrible, but I don't want to convey that Abraxas is like evil.
Yeah, not terrible, like bad.
No, but in power. It just means that the idea is so powerful. And he talks about he thinks this is going to destroy people because people are going to just sit on this and get torn apart, thinking themselves into like he says dissolution. Mm-hmm. Just trying to understand these concepts because they're so big and so powerful and they apply in so many ways.
And that's why the Buddhists say to rest and meditate, to balance yourself so that you don't go insane thinking about these things.
Right. Yeah.
Go touch grass.
Because it's so easy.
Think about it really hard, go crazy, and then go take a walk in the park.
Take a fucking walk.
Listen to the Beatles.
Yeah. Yeah. That was all my major points. I think they covered pretty much the whole thing in my mind.
Yeah.
For Abraxas and Abraxas. Was there anything we kind of missed or anything we should have touched on?
No, I think just the concept of Abraxas is we've said it. The idea that everything exists between two poles, two opposite poles, and that life is the interaction between those poles, and that's where everything interesting happens. Have nuance, have balance. Be heart-centered.
Yeah.
Love people. Don't become too extreme in anything. That's an imbalance.
Yeah, don't go crazy on this stuff. Enlightenment, and that's probably one of the things too. Is like the closer you get to enlightenment, the closer you are to madness. Yep. And stuff like that. This is just the letter A of the Gnostic ABCs, which is crazy.
This is just
too.
The beginning.
Yeah.
And that's the Icarus story too, right? He flew too close to the sun and then crashed and drowned in the ocean. So
yeah, and that's
don't
also
fly too close to the sun.
I think that was also one of the Gnostic beliefs. Is like there was like three types of people in the way that they saw people. And like only one of the three types of people could actually receive gnosis and like realize it, which is another thing that I need to look more into. But it's kind of a crazy idea that like it's almost like reinforcing NPC theory, and it's like some of these people just actually are NPCs and are never gonna fucking get it.
Yep. And that's like I guess is that necessary? Is that the work of the archon? Is that because of the archon?
I don't know. I mean, that's a whole other thing. I was like, are NPCs necessary? Is a crazy thought. I mean, I guess in a way because I guess they can be swayed by either force, right? They can be swayed by good or evil. So if they're getting swayed by evil, okay, and this is kind of getting deeper into the second layer, letter B, that I was talking about too. It's like if they are, maybe the NPC's purpose would be to be swayed by, you know, sides so that you could keep balance in some way or another. But if humans really do realize their true power or their power over things like Abraxas, they can influence it as much or as little in either direction that they want. So you really could just push them. They could be abused. I guess that's one of the, or something to consider is like.
I mean, that's what people, I think, like Donald Trump, whether they're aware of it or not, kind of figure out.
Maybe. I mean,
Control,
you could probably talk.
Sway.
I think, yeah. I mean, you could think
masses
about,
of people.
Yeah, and you can point it towards I think you could probably point it towards a lot of lobbyists and
like him or not, he's a really strong battery with a lot of influence over the world.
He understands a lot of these principles. And he understands how he can manipulate his reality.
Creates extremely emotional reactions in just about everybody.
Yeah.
You know.
And there's a lot of groups that have done this, and I think the scarier groups are the groups that do these things in the shadows. But yeah, they definitely. So NPC theory is definitely an interesting little twist in here of like, are they necessary? Perhaps they were, you know, at one point designed to fulfill a purpose, but they can be hacked. I mean, if this is a simulation, they can be hacked, they can be manipulated. You know, they're subject to all kinds of influence.
Yeah, if you want to not be, what's the cure for NPCism?
Dude, I don't know. If you go to the Gnostics, it sounds like there is no cure. I don't know if you can become one of the different 3 types. Like, I forget what the 3 types are called, but I don't know if you can become one of those higher types, or the type that can receive gnosis just by eating mushrooms or like doing some acid or something like that. Like,
you would think that was like that's the dream, is like, oh, everyone, like this is possible for everyone, and like theoretically you'd think it is possible for everyone, but then reality kind of shows that there are people that just will.
Dude, that's like
they'll just never get it. Like in this life, maybe not in this lifetime. Maybe it takes a few million more.
Maybe some people do need to reincarnate so they can you know get a little bit different perspective, or get some different attributes that help them along the way. But like I've heard stories of some people, like the scariest thing to me is like the people who like do acid and then just like feel weird and don't get any like profound thoughts or like any insight from it. Like I always get some shit from it. Like it almost like so much so that I can't do it all the time because like, dude, that's how you drive yourself fucking insane.
It's an imbalance.
Yeah, but like it's definitely useful in doses. But like, you know, hearing about people like just do it and then they don't feel anything, like that's crazy to me, or they just feel like different. They don't like have any thoughts. Like
that is
it's
insane.
like, is your brain on? Is your conscious?
Yeah, the
work?
idea that like maybe not every person you encounter has a soul. They are
Possible.
just like coded into the matrix.
Possible. They're just beings of intelligence and physicality. They don't have the third aspect of humanity, the light of the monad. They don't have a soul or a spirit.
Maybe that's part of the deal too. Like when they talk about if if they weigh your heart when you die on the scale, maybe they like really care how you treated the NPCs.
I'm sure that's a factor.
Like,
yeah, it sounds like
nice to the NPCs.
That's another thing about the indies too. Is like the indies, they people commonly report that they're shown like how they treated every person in their life, like every single person they ever interacted with, no matter how small the interaction. It all like
because that's still a spark of the monad.
Yeah, because it all flashes before them, and they're shown every single interaction, and they feel how the other person felt interacting with them. So that's I don't know, that's an interesting point.
So stay balanced, live from your heart, be good to people. Yeah.
Yeah. Hooray. That was episode 3. So yeah, thanks again, Garrett, for that episode.
Garrett.
I think we've got some cool stuff coming up too next. I think we've got supernatural powers at some point, psychic powers. We may have to distill that down into some more specific things because that's so broad. Or maybe we can do a big broad episode, something like that. But yeah, if you guys have any more ideas or anything you want to hear, just let us know in the comments and we'll cover it.
We could do a deep dive on Gnosticism. We could do a deep dive on Jung, all that stuff.
All that stuff's worth doing. All that stuff's worth doing at some point, yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, cool. That's Abraxas. Thanks, guys. Jay.
Yep.